All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Lacey. If you haven't been with us for History in the Kitchen before, I am joined by my partner in all things foodways, Rachel, on the other camera. And Sam is one of our other volunteers. He's hiding in the background there supporting Rachel. We are super excited to be launching into this season of History in the Kitchen. We are kicking it off with carrot puffs. Rachel, can you go ahead? Oh, sorry, it's been a while.
Yeah, we have to remember how to do this.
We have to remember how to do this. So as a reminder, we have everyone come into the system with microphones muted. If you do turn off your microphone, or if you turn your microphone on, turn your camera on, you may be caught in the recording that is part of this program. We do publicly post this recording after the end of the program on our YouTube page and ultimately on our website. So we do encourage you to keep that camera turned off, keep that microphone muted so you don't accidentally pop up into that recording stream. Otherwise, we are looking forward to kicking off our next section of History in the Kitchen. I am going to ask Rachel to go ahead and drop our PowerPoint on the screen so we can take a look at our recipe for today. And some of you probably caught in the chat, we have been having some issues with our website. We got a new website, which is super exciting, but we are not able to host our PDFs in quite the same way, so I wasn't able to get a PDF of the recipe out to everyone. You might have grabbed the information off of the online event page. Rachel has also dropped it into the chat for everyone. And in case you miss it, we'll drop it a couple more times through the program so you can grab it. But while we've got this lovely PowerPoint up, I'm going to give you a second to look at the ingredients up there on camera. You can already see on my ingredients cam, I've got the carrots already ready to go. I've got my breadcrumbs. I will be separating eggs on camera a little bit better this morning. We've got our nutmeg already measured out. We are going to be using that optional orange flower water. Doesn't look like much, but the kitchen does smell quite strongly of orange flower water already this morning. We are going to go for the optional sherry as well from our lovely historic bottle. It's not historic sherry, it is modern sherry. We've got our sugar, our cream, and we are going to go for the modern vegetable-based Crisco for our frying oil today. All right. Rachel, do you want to flip us over to the recipe and we'll take a look at that for a second? Is it being a jerk to us?
There we go.
Always goes wrong for History in the Kitchen. We're just hoping this time I don't set off the fire alarm, which I did for our last session of History in the Kitchen in March. All right, so we are looking at, we're good, we can see it. We just need to click off the menu. Perfect. All right, so we want to scrape and boil our carrots and parsnips. We're using just carrots for these carrot puffs. Mash them very fine, add to it a pint of the pulp, so the mashed carrots, a crumb of penny loaf grated. A penny loaf is a particular measure. We've been able to determine that it's about a cup of breadcrumbs. Or some stale biscuit. Biscuit in the 18th century was interesting. But I realized I'm digging into this recipe and I haven't had y'all invited y'all to do some exploring and ask us questions. Notice if there's anything that stands out for you, anything that you're curious about. But while y'all do that, I will talk a little bit more about biscuit. If you want to pop into the chat some things that you notice that stand out and sound kind of interesting to you. Biscuit is often refers to Naples biscuit, which we would today think of as maybe a ladyfinger, kind of that hard, crisp biscuit, and it provides a kind of sweet palate in those breadcrumbs. So that's another option. Do we have any comments in the chat yet, Rachel?
Nope, no comments.
Or should we ask Sam what he thinks is interesting about this recipe? Anything that stands out?
I always like the way that they say to separate the eggs,
Mm-hmm.
which I always have to think about when I'm doing it. Then it makes the math more complicated. So some eggs, but 4 whites. And but often in this case means don't put in the whites.
Yes. I'm gonna turn my audio up over here just a little bit. Yeah, so in this case, we are using egg yolks rather than egg whites. So we talked about, we're using the orange flower water. Looking at the ingredients, you might have noticed the sherry in the ingredients list, but if you're not used to looking at an 18th century recipe, you might not be seeing that sherry in this recipe. Rachel and I, looking at it, are looking for the word sack. So we're looking at a little sack, which is sherry, sweet sherry in the 18th century. And then we also are getting in that little bit of cream right after that. It's also fun. The recipe indicates that it should be fried in rendered suet.
I was just going to say that's an odd one. Don't
Mhm.
see suet very often for a frying option.
Right. And suet is beef fat.
So there's often tallow and there's often lard or butter,
But not often rendered
not
suet.
often suet. Yeah.
Yeah, for frying in particular. We'll see it in like pies and things as an additive fat. So pies that we might put butter into today as that kind of fat to get everything to bind together, we'll see suet instead. All right. Anyone have any?
Oh, Sam likes pint of pulp.
Pint of pulp. Yeah, so we're talking about the pint of the mashed carrots. So we're probably gonna have a little bit more than a pint. We've tweaked some of these ingredients a little bit in the recipe to kind of get the balance right, so we get a good texture on the carrot puff.
And using fewer eggs than the original recipe calls for to try to counter the fact that historic recipes, historic eggs were often smaller than modern eggs.
Right. So we've got grade A large eggs today to use, and eggs in the 18th century were often medium sized, what we would think of as medium sized today. All right. So Rachel, if you want to go ahead and take down the PowerPoint, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I've got our carrots here. We've washed them, scrubbed them. I've taken the tops and bottoms off. You will notice that I am cheating a little bit. We did not scrape them. We did not peel them. Here's the thing. Nobody's going to know unless you tell them.
Yep.
How many times have we fed this to people, Rachel, and not scraped the carrots?
We
really enjoy it.
Rarely scrape the carrots.
We just make sure that they're scrubbed really good. There's also some really good nutrients in the peels of the carrots. So I have no problems leaving them. So I'm just giving them a cut in half so it's a little bit easier for me to get the dice on. Because I've got, as you can see, we've got some nice big boys here. So we're going for a nice little dice. If you're doing this at home with kiddos, if you've got a veg chopper, this might be a great time to get your veg chopper going. So you can just kind of smack them through. Obviously with kiddos, they can also do the chopping themselves just under adult supervision, particularly as the way that we're doing this recipe, you want to get your chop pretty small, because in a hot minute, we are going to toss these carrots into the microwave with a little bit of water. So my bowl over here has just a tiny bit of water in it. That's going to create a nice little bit of steam when I put these in the microwave, and it's going to cook the carrots so that we can mash them later. If you want to do this the slightly more old-fashioned way, chunk your carrots up into slightly larger pieces, boil them, and then pull them out, cool them, stick them in a nice bath and mash them. Or, you know, cool them and stick them in your food processor. We're going old school today. We're cutting them up by hand.
Sometimes we ponder pressure cooking them and then end up boiling them anyway.
Yeah, we did do that, didn't we? We
Yep.
made a huge batch
When
of
you're
this
making
in
huge
September.
amounts. Yeah.
Yeah, and we talked about pressure cooking them, and we ended up boiling them instead. Or did we roast them? Because there's
Oh,
a
we
really
roasted them.
good-
That's because that's what we, for all of our giant programs, Lacey and I have decided that roasting the vegetable is the best way
to get a
to
ton of
get it
veg
done
at once.
fast.
Yeah,
And then you get that nice sort of roasted flavor in.
caramelization of the sugars and the veg in there too. Yeah, for sure. So for those of you looking at home, I'm also just kind of quartering the carrots. When I get to the bigger ones, I'll maybe go into eighths or sixths, depending on how big the carrot is. Rachel, I know you were doing a little bit of research on carrots the other day, because as we know in history, carrots were not always necessarily orange.
I was looking up why they decided orange. Why, when carrots came in many colors, they decided that the orange was going to be the standard color. And it seems to be the Dutch decided, and whether or not that has anything to do with the House of Orange seems to not be true, but orange carrots had the best texture for a lot of different recipes. So they kept well over the winter, which is another thing that I thought we could talk about a little bit today, was how they, people in colonial times and George Mason and before that, before modern refrigeration, how they were keeping vegetables over the winter. And let me tell you, by the spring, you were really tired of potatoes and carrots, but
Apples.
and apples. So what I didn't know until I started doing it at a colonial farm was that you don't just sort of chuck your carrots into the root cellar, you separate them. And there are all these different ideas for what you should use for what vegetable, whether you should
Are you talking about packing materials?
packing material, whether you should whether you should use sawdust or whether you should use sand, or whether you should actually replant them in dirt but keep them in your root cellar. And I actually saw a modern one that said newspaper for carrots works really well.
I've
But
also seen straw for
Yeah.
apples.
yep. And so I was reading it, and it was a lot like how they tell you not to store your onions and your potatoes next to each other in your modern kitchen. It was the same idea. They often kept them very far apart to keep the potatoes from going bad. Apples also, you kept in a separate room.
So we would think about that in kind of a modern sense, adding in some science. Fruits and vegetables, as they ripen, produce ethylene gas. Apples are particularly notable for that, and apples and potatoes and apples and onions, they kind of like feed off of each other and produce more and more ethylene gas and cause the decay process to happen much faster.
So as we were talking about this recipe, Lacey and I text each other constantly, and in our random discussions about this, we were also talking about why it is that every culture seems to have fritters, whether those fritters are meat fritters, like a meatball. Everybody has a meatball, whether it's your Swedish meatball or your Italian meatball or your arepa kind of meat, ground meat inside a dough of some sort. But everyone has a fritter, and the Romans had fritters. So, and I decided that nobody had a really good answer. And I think Lacey, the answer is fried food is good.
Fried food is good. We like things that are brown. more modern chefs will call that, to some extent, I think it gets into umami, which is, if I remember correctly, it's the formation and flavoring of monosodium glutamate. Uh, all right, I'm looking at this.
That's a lot of carrots.
That is a lot of carrots. So we've got out 8 to 10 carrots as the recipe calls for, but obviously, as we talked about, we got some big boys. So I'm looking at this, having made this recipe before. I think I'm gonna stop here and call this good. So remember, I had a little bit of water in the bottom of my bowl. If you haven't put water in your bowl already, this is the time to do it. Just like a tablespoon or two. You don't need a whole lot. And then we got the carrots in there. And next, I'm gonna put some plastic wrap over the top. This is a really, really cool science experiment if you're doing this with kiddos. They are going to love to see what happens. Adults who have done stuff like this before, you will probably know that the cling wrap, the plastic film, is going to expand because it's got this like nice thin layer, and as the moisture in the bowl heats up, it's going to expand. It's going to create a nice little balloon. And then we'll talk about what happens on the other end. I'm going to put these in the microwave.
I'm 51 and still like watching it expand in the microwave.
It's unfortunate. It's really hard for me to move my camera over there or I'd show you. But like I said, the microwave and that steam is creating this kind of hot air. It's going to create this balloon shape in there, and get everything going. And you know what? While we're waiting, I'm gonna have a snack. I'm gonna see how these carrots are. Some carrots are a little bitter sometimes, and they still make a good carrot puff, but the sweet ones make the best carrot puffs. We got some decently sweet ones this time. Not mad about that. And the varieties that we're growing in the garden right now are also varieties that do tend to be pretty sweet, unless you let them go too far. We have gotten some really bitter carrots out of the garden because we've let them go a little long. All right. Anybody have any thoughts or questions at this point?
No, there are no questions. No questions.
Yeah, I'm just gonna keep snacking.
I was approving of the carrot snacking.
Rachel and I are foodies, obviously. All right, so I'm gonna pull in my ingredients. Again, we've got our sack, our sherry. We are gonna use the orange flower water. This is a lot more than what I'm gonna be using today. I just wanted you to be able to see it on camera. It smells so good. We've got our
Heavy cream,
our
breadcrumbs,
our 2 eggs. Remember, we downgraded the size of the eggs because the eggs in the original recipe were probably on the small to medium size, and I'll just be using the yolks. We've got our sugar, a little bit of salt, and our nutmeg.
Lacey, can you talk
Yes, ma'am.
can you talk about how you decide how much orange flower or rose flower water to put in something?
That's a great question. And the answer is generally not a lot. Orange flower water is a little bit more forgiving than rose water. And in fact, we get our orange flower water from a Afghani market not too far from here. And on the side of the bottle, it talks about how to make what they call orange flower water coffee. And it's basically a whole mess of orange flower water in water, like a quarter of a cup to like 6 ounces of water 6 or 8 ounces of water, which is a massive amount. It's very, very strongly flavored. But generally speaking, most recipes, you're not going to use more than a tablespoon or so of either orange flower water or rose water, because it can become overwhelming. The goal here is not so much to flavor the dish as it is to give it an aroma. This is particularly true in the rose water. You can overdo rose water really easy. And when you overdo rose water, what does it taste like, Rachel?
Your grandmother's perfume
Or soap.
or soap.
Yeah,
Um,
one or the other. It's quite strong.
so definitely if you're using one of these, you can always add more, but you can't take it out. So start small.
Correct.
And remember that you're really judging on smell. So if when Lacey's mixing this up, she might smell it and say, you could use a little more rose flower water.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'm looking at our microwave over there. I can see my balloon forming. I'm gonna give it another like minute or two, about 30 seconds left. As I got closer to the microwave, I can start smelling the carrots. It's another good indicator that they're kind of heading towards done is when I can start smelling them. 18th century recipes don't tell us this, but I do think very strongly that cooks relied a lot more on their senses than what 18th century recipes and modern recipes really suggest. The number of times Rachel and I have been in kitchen spaces and we're cooking with folks who've never done stuff like this before, and we're like, I can hear that, I can smell that, I can see that doing this.
Somebody check your toast. It's,
right, I can smell the toast. Check the toast, please.
Yep. And the other thing I wanted to mention was the salt, which you'll notice was not in the salt and pepper or anything like that, was not in the original recipe. And this is a question Lacey and I just did a presentation somewhere else, and we were talking about trying to get into the head of what the people who wrote these recipes down knew. So if you were making a recipe from scratch, if you were just at home and you're making a stir fry, you're making mashed potatoes, you're not going to stop and think, oh, I should add a half a teaspoon of salt like that recipe from Martha Stewart said. You're just going to know that it needs salt. And so though salt is not in these recipes, we are pretty sure they were going to add salt to things. And also their butter was salted. So a lot of baking recipes wouldn't have salt because their butter was salted to keep it fresher longer.
Yep. I'm gonna turn my camera off for just a second. Microwave just beeped at me, so I'm gonna rescue the carrots out in just a tick, but I'm also having a little bit of audio issue, so I'm gonna transfer my audio to the other camera.
We were getting good echoes this morning. Does anyone have any questions? You can just type them right in the chat.
All right, can y'all hear me okay?
Yep.
Oh, that's so much better. All right, like I said, my carrots have pinged at me, so I am gonna go grab those out of the microwave. You can't see it, but I am using hot pad. Well, this is exciting. My carrots got so warm, my cling wrap split. So I'm just gonna put another layer over that because the next step is actually to let this sit for a second and let the steam do the final work of cooking the carrots so that I can mash them in a second. So I'm just gonna essentially kind of cover up that hole. You can see when I did that, I don't know if you all can see it because you're looking at it from an upward angle.
It
but
puffed.
As soon as I sealed it again, it started puffing up just a little bit. So I've got a nice little puff going on right there at the top. Getting nice and tight. And we're gonna let that sit for a second.
Lacey, I can't believe you used pot holders when you could have just stuck your hand. Lacey and I are obsessed with this man on YouTube. We Lacey and I have pretty asbestos-y hands from working in the
I am
kitchen.
being a good example for the kiddos. I am using the correct tools for the job. But I interrupted Rachel's story. Sorry.
Yeah. And so we can both touch some pretty hot stuff at this point, but Lacey found this YouTube video of a man who literally reaches into a fire and grabs the cast iron pan by the handle and pulls it out
With his bare hands.
with his bare hands.
Yeah. Am I seeing a question in the chat?
Yes. Where did you find this recipe?
Which cookbook did we pull this one from? I can't remember, Rachel.
Eliza Smith.
Ah, this is E. Smith, The Complete Housewife, right? Is that the one?
Yep, it should be.
So this is a great English recipe. It's one of the first cookbooks that we know was reprinted in America. It was reprinted in Williamsburg. Do you remember when, Rachel? I can't.
1737.
1737.
Oh, that explains the suet a little more.
Yep. So it's a little bit earlier as well. So this is an English made cookbook. So we're seeing lots of very English influenced dishes. We don't see quite as many coming from other parts of the world. Although we will see some, and we'll see more in cookbooks that kind of shove later in the century into the 50s, 60s, 1750s, 60s, and 70s. This recipe and this cookbook are available online. And Rachel and I have a couple of places that we like to look for historic cookbooks like this one. I don't remember if we used the physical copy of this book or if we found it online. Do you, Rachel?
I wonder, was this one of the ones that Harlow found when she was interning that summer, maybe?
Could be.
Yeah.
Gunston Hall has a copy, both an original copy and a modern repro of E. Smith's Complete Housewife. But if I remember correctly, it is available on both the Internet Archive and on the Hathi Trust.
Yeah.
Rachel, do you think you could pull the URLs for those websites and pop them in the chat?
Sure.
All right. And while Rachel does that, just kind of looking, you can see the cling film has the plastic wrap has kind of sunk back in on the carrots. So it's continuing to steam, continuing to cook just a little bit, but I am going to grab a fork and I'm going to test and see if they're ready to be mashed. Nice and tender. That fork just went right through that. Absolutely so clean, like butter. All right. So we're ready for the next step. And Rachel, I can see you also put the link for the Welcome collection. That is not one where you will find a whole lot of pre-printed cookbooks. They have an absolutely freaking fabulous manuscript cookbook collection. Rachel and I have used it all the time.
If you've got extra time, they are so fun to look through people's handwritten recipes. And a lot of times you'll find in someone's handwritten cookbook this exact recipe, and it's written exactly the same, and it's clear that they were writing down, they were copying it from the cookbook into a more usable, here's my recipe book format.
Yeah, there's one in particular that's really cool. One of the earliest recipes for ice cream shows up in multiple 17th century manuscript cookbooks, and it's referred to as Lady Fanshaw's recipe for icy cream, or receipt for icy cream. And it's really cool. BuzzFeed did a spot on it. God, do you remember when BuzzFeed did that, Rachel? It's been like 10 or 15 years ago now.
We talk about it all the time, so now it feels like it was yesterday, but yeah, it was a long time ago.
It's been a while, and I thought it was hysterical because they were making orange flower water ice cream and put way too much orange flower water in it.
They kept, the person who was making it kept saying, I can't taste it, and they'd add more. And how much did they end up with at the end?
It was well more than half a cup, because she added it by the tablespoon a couple of times, and then she added a quarter of a cup at the end. And she tasted it after she froze it and was like, ooh. Anyway,
Don't do that.
time to mash carrots. I am using a vintage masher here, and my goal is just kind of get everything mashed into a paste. As Sam pointed out earlier in our recipe, we're looking for a pulp. So you can use a potato masher. If you want to blitz them at home in your food processor, you can do that. Any of the above works. This is working even better than the last time we did this too,
I
Rachel.
was gonna say, those look really good.
They came out so good. The last time we did this, it wasn't bad. It took a little bit longer for the carrots to cook. All right. So I like mine to be just a smidge chunky. So I'm gonna stop mashing now and I'll show you what I'm talking about in just a second. Bowl's still hot, so I'm getting my protective equipment, Rachel. So we got a little bit of chunk, but largely mashed. Nice texture there. And I'm going to literally dump in everything else.
The best kind of recipes where everything just goes in.
I'm gonna go a little bit more shy on the salt.
I just poured a bunch in there.
Sugar, most everything is pre-measured. It makes it easier on us when we're doing this. Then in goes our cream. In goes our orange flower water. Should I do this by eye or should I measure it? What do you think, Rachel?
You could do it by eye. I trust
Do
you.
it by eye. Trust me. She's tasting it later.
Also, those pictures are super cute. These tiny little pictures.
They're perfect for this. So I probably put in about 1/4 teaspoon. All right. I'm going to put in our sack. This is 2 tablespoons, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I can't pour well, so it's going to be nicely sherry flavored. And now that I've got a little bit more room on the counter over here, I'm going to slide these over just a smidge. And I'm going to start preheating my pan because I'm using cast iron. If you've been with us for a while, you've seen History in the Kitchen before, you know that Rachel and I both really like cast iron for frying. Gives a good, nice crisp, retains the heat really well. So it creates a really nice finish on any fried stuff that we're working on. But it takes a minute to heat up. So this will not be like the cooked greens.
You don't do that.
Nope, we're not doing that again. Not setting off the fire alarm. All right. So I've got all my stuff in there. Except for my eggs. Now let's see if this is successful today. So I'm just going to separate my eggs and pop the yolks in there. At home, if you want to, you can save the egg whites for something else. I'm not planning on cooking anything else after this morning. So I am not planning on saving the egg whites. But I'll be right back.
I knew I shouldn't have put the eggs away. Lacey's going to run to the fridge and get another egg. That's a Rachel move, not a Lacey move. Lacey is usually much better at separating eggs than me. I would have accidentally thrown it across the kitchen. And that cast iron pan really is clean, though. It doesn't look it in your shot. It's seasoned a little wonky.
There's a reason. There are extra eggs. Oh, did I hear something about the seasoning on the?
I would say the cast iron pan looks a little wonky on camera, but it's just, I think, seasoned a little.
Yes. Yeah, the seasoning is a little bit thick on the bottom right edge. Yeah, so. You do not belong. I have a little bit of eggshell in there that I'm trying to keep out. I can also smell that my cast iron is heating up. It's got that hot metal smell. There we go. Calling that a success. I'm gonna rinse my fingers. Oh, and it's hot because I just started smoking, which means it's got a little bit of excess oil from the last time we used it. And what should happen when I drop some water on it, should get a nice sizzle on. It did. And if I get a nice little pool, we should be able to kind of roll the water around, which I did a little bit. Hard to see on camera probably because the pan's nice and hot. So I'm gonna next pop in my Crisco.
So again, talking about fats, you can use, we got out this morning and ended up, the Crisco was expiring. So we said, let's use the Crisco, but we also got out lard and we got out vegetable oil, both of which would work.
A little bit of water left over in the pan.
Lard is delicious and always makes for a very decadent and not olive oil, but a vegetable oil with a higher smoke point.
Yep. So grapeseed oil, or if you can do peanuts, peanut oil is a great frying oil. Corn oil is a great frying oil. But we want things to have nice high smoke points so that we're not, as again, not setting off the fire alarm as we're cooking. There is a lot of water in this Crisco, so it's bubbling at me a lot. I'm gonna pull it off the heat for just a second.
I always forget how well Crisco works, Lacey.
Yeah, so I just pulled it off the heat just to get, I turned the burner down just a little bit. But Crisco is hydrogenated vegetable oil, so it does have a fair amount of water, which when you first heat it up can pop a lot. And as you add more liquid, it can pop additionally. Okay, but that's ready, so I'm gonna pop that back over here. Here's my batter. It's super thick.
I was gonna say, can we see? Yep.
Yep, so this is exactly what it's supposed to look like. I'm really glad I didn't go for additional carrots. And I'm just gonna drop it in kind of by the tablespoonful into my fat. And you can, I don't know if y'all can see up there on screen, but
Yep.
the moment I dropped it in, it started sizzling, which tells me that yes, indeed, my pan is quite hot. It's at the right temperature. But I'm not quite centered on the burner, so I'm gonna adjust. There we go.
No, now we can definitely see the sizzle.
And so I'm not doing this in super deep oil. I don't love doing deep frying, although it's not outside of the realm of possibility. You should probably want to go for a slightly thicker batter than what we did still. And you can do that just by adding less liquid. Don't quite add quite as much cream or quite as much sack. And I need to remind myself that when I say sack, I need to translate and say sherry.
Sherry.
So we're gonna let those fry for a couple of minutes on each side. If you're doing this at home and you're doing it with kiddos and you'd rather kind of get them all batch done at once, Rachel and I have had really, really great success cooking these in the oven at 350 for about 10, 12 minutes. When we've made this recipe for our big Cocktails by Candlelight program, we almost always do them in the oven. Put a little oil on top, oil on the pan, and let them go there because it's much more time effective for us. So this one's not quite done yet because it is still sticking to the pan. The lovely thing about pans like this, if you get them hot enough, if you get the oil hot enough, when the fritter is fully cooked, it will just release from the pan, which is really nice. So it's released on the edges, but not quite yet in the middle. Anybody have any thoughts or questions for us? Oh, I also put this in at the beginning in the chat, but some of you might not have joined yet. We would love to know where you're joining us from. You can give us your zip code. You can give us your city state. As an example, I'm here in 22079, Lorton, Virginia. And how many people are at your login? For me, of course, just the one. Almost there. Yeah. Not quite. It was pretty cooked. As you can see,
It's always,
I don't know if y'all can see the brown.
it's always the first one.
Yeah. Not quite there. I'm going to turn the heat back up just a skosh. Ooh, we've got Williamsport, PA. That's exciting.
It's my mom.
Oh, hi, Mom. Okay, when we very first started doing this program, actually it was summer Saturdays, I think, before we started History in the Kitchen, my mom was on.
Your mom. That was, and
You
when
know,
I first met her in real life, I was like, why do I know your voice?
because you've heard it on programs. Oh, we've got some upstate New York folks. Huzzah! Love it. Love it, love it, love it. We'd love to know if you make this at home, particularly if you make it with kiddos. If you have, if you like the recipe, like how it came out, let us know. Or if you have suggestions and you're like, hey, this didn't work as well for me, we would, we'd love to know that as well. It helps us make the program even better for people who join us in the future.
Lacey, you want to talk while you're waiting for those to fry a little bit, what else we're doing this season?
Yeah, so our next session in December is German puffs, which is a really fun one. It is related to, these are sticking really bad today. These are not releasing in quite the way they should. So German puffs is a cousin to a Dutch baby. Kind of like, if you've never had either, kind of like a cross between a crepe and a popover. And the original recipe says they're supposed to be served with sprinkled with powdered sugar and gooseberry jam, which can attest is delightful. That one's got a nice,
That one worked really well.
yeah, not releasing quite as well as I would have liked, but got a really nice grip on it. And then in January,
I asked you this and then put you on the spot to remember what
thanks,
we're.
Rachel.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
that.
Hold on, I'll find it.
I'm blanking on January. We're still deciding on a recipe for February. It is going to be African American in culture. We just haven't quite decided on which recipe we're gonna make. I do remember
Roman
in
salad guy.
which one?
Roman salad guy.
That's in March, isn't it?
I don't think we
Oh,
have.
we're doing eggs and croquette.
Yep.
We're doing eggs and croquette in January, which is weird and yet delightful. If you have ever had Scotch eggs and you like them, this one has no meat in it, but it gives a similar vibe. And then March, yes, Rachel, is Roman guy, what Rachel and I lovingly call Roman guy salad. The recipe is called a salad sauce. And we love this one. We love a good salad, and we particularly love this one.
We call it the Roman guy salad because he is clearly, he's trying in what, when in that time when they were trying to, replicate things that were Roman and all Roman was good. And then the same time they started pulling in English words in Latin to try to make them sound fancy, he says that this is a sauce just like the Romans would have used on their salads. Oh, those look really good.
They smell freaking amazing. I'm ready to taste.
Oh, see that comment, Lacey?
I can see a comment pops, but I can't read it.
This is Brittany. I'm gonna put my glasses on, then I'll be able to read it. I've made the nearly exact ingredient carrot pudding from Hannah Glass, similar.
We have two. We like that one. Rachel, when Rachel and I first started talking about doing this particular recipe, she was like, carrot pudding. And I was like, no. Carrot
Puffs. Those usually say take 8 eggs and leave out half the whites. Have you tried that with the puffs, since it seems like the same pudding in a different form?
Yeah, we haven't tried exactly that ratio, but yeah, we like both of these. They're both super easy. They're both really tasty. And we have fed them multiple times to other people. So this is, when I say they're really tasty, I'm not just like talking it up. People
So
agree
the
with
carrot
that.
pudding that Brittany is talking about is it's made in it's sort of a pie pan kind of pudding. It's rather than individually fried. It's, if I remember correctly.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So carrot pudding, puddings in the 18th century don't necessarily mean pudding like what we would think of them today. They tend to be more solid and not custardy.
So I think that pudding has more eggs because of the format in which you're cooking it, that it needs more eggs to cook in the oven versus these, which you do not want nearly as wet as that pudding.
I don't know about your texture. Was it Brittany?
Yes.
I don't know about your texture, Brittany, but to me, the carrot pudding puts me more in mind of like a pumpkin pie or a sweet potato pie. It's not quite the same because it's got breadcrumbs in it. But that's the vibe that I get from that recipe. All right, I'm putting my next batch in, but I'm also looking at the time and I want to be respectful of everybody's time and give you a sense of how do our carrot fritters taste today. They're a little tender, a little soft. Partly that might be because I did use gluten-free breadcrumbs today. If you've been with us before, if you've done History in the Kitchen in the past, you'll know that Rachel and I both have dietary restrictions. And so when we can, we make some adjustments so that she and I can both eat them. So we've got our nice little carrot puff there, little, like I said, little tender.
Good carrots.
That's a good puff. They're still really warm too, which is always really nice. Really sweet. I can get just a hint of sherry. Mostly it's cooked off. There's very little alcohol in it.
I love the sherry in both this and the carrot pudding.
And the pudding.
And it just sort of adds this absolute perfect taste that's sort of not replicable in any other. There's sort of nothing like sherry.
Yeah, I would agree. I got a couple little overcooked bits that came off of my first fritters that I'm just peeling out. Those are for somebody who likes the crispy bit.
Me.
Yep. Well, Rachel and I are going to hang around for a few more minutes. I'm going to turn the recording off. So if you'd like to turn on camera, turn on microphone, you won't be captured in the recording. And if you have any last questions that you want to ask, please feel free to do so. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us for the first History in the Kitchen of this season for carrot puffs. And we'll see you again next time.